Chapter 8. You cannot make an omelette without breaking a few eggs. This proverb has its origins in France around 1700 from a man called François de Charette. The original in French was Ne saurais faire d'omelette sans s'asser des sauces. The translation into English was in 1776. Achieving any goal involves deliberate planning, effort, and sacrifice. If success was easy, everyone would be successful. If you would ask a good number of people whether they want to be successful, success is not only limited to finances, but in all areas, most, if not all, would respond with a resounding yes, of course, and would probably question your sanity for even daring to ask that question. But most eventually back out when they realize the price they have to pay in order to succeed, or to use the words of this proverb. They want to make an omelette, but are unwilling to break a few eggs. Breaking the instant gratification egg. One of the vices that need to be conquered to achieve success in any area of our lives is instant gratification. There is a primitive human tendency to think in the short term. We want it, and we want it now, without thinking much about the future. A short look back into our history will tell us why we have this primitive instinct. Our forefathers did not have the luxury of simply going to the grocery store to buy some food. They had to hunt for their dinner, and there was no guarantee that a hunting trip would yield positive results. So when they were successful, they had to consume what they had immediately for two reasons. One, they did not know when they would have another opportunity to eat some proteins, and two, since they had no refrigerator, they had to eat the meat before it rotted. There were also other reasons, like the likelihood of losing their hard-earned prey to wild animals or other hostile tribes. Fast forward thousands of years later to our present time. We do not have the same fears, but this primitive instinct is still there. In 1972, Walter Mischel, a professor at Stanford University, did an experiment, popularly known as the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment. One child after the other was seated in a room, and a marshmallow was placed right in front of them. They were then told they could of course eat the marshmallow, but if they were able to wait for 15 minutes, they would be rewarded with a second marshmallow. Most of the children were not able to wait and decided to consume the delicious-looking marshmallow. Follow-up studies many years later found that most of the children who were able to delay gratification had better life outcomes. There is undoubtedly a correlation between instant gratification and financial discipline, or the lack thereof. People who have difficulties in delaying gratification are more likely to live beyond their means and to incur debts for consumer products whose values depreciate over time and are therefore actually a liability. Banks, advertisement agencies, and other financial institutions know this and often capitalize on it. They'll send letters or advertise using different media, urging you to imagine what you would do with the money they want to lend you. The fact that you have to pay back with interest is only written in small letters. It is possible today to buy almost anything in installments, from clothing to a car. Credit card companies give you the impression they want to make life easier for you. You can use their card to buy the stuff you cannot actually afford. You have to pay the money back, and of course, if you are late in paying, interests accrue. The world financial crisis in 2008 revealed just how dangerous it is to give into these debt traps. To break this egg, you might need to make sacrifices by living below your means, saving and/or investing, and then buying when you have the money. Breaking the procrastination egg. It is one thing to know what you need to do, and it is another thing to actually do it. Most people know they need to save for their future and the future of their families. Most people know what they need to do in order to better their lives. Procrastination is a major hurdle for success in life. Humans naturally tend to avoid anything that threatens their comfort zone. You know, you need to get up early to do some workouts, but staying in bed seems more enticing, and you convince yourself that next week will be different, as if the person who has to wake up and work out next week will miraculously be a different person. Successful people are, of course, also tempted to procrastinate. They too struggle with this vice. The difference is they do what they need to do anyway, whether they feel like doing it or not. As Brian Tracy in his book No Excuses put it, self-discipline is doing what you need to do, when you need to do it, whether you feel like doing it or not. You will not always feel like saving money when you are bombarded with images of new gadgets that you really need to have, or images of exotic places you would like to visit and be able to tell your friends about. Stephen R. Covey, the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, put it this way: our actions should be a product of our values, not our feelings. In other words, if our feelings contradict our values or threaten our goals, then our actions should not be guided by them. We would, in this case, act against our feelings in order to protect our values and goals, and would therefore benefit in the long term. There are definitely many reasons why people procrastinate. Let us delve into a few here. One of the major reasons for procrastination is the fear of failure. Yes, that's right. People do procrastinate because they fear that their action will lead to failure, which they believe may bring with it another feared reaction or response, the fear of criticism. If not dealt with, this fear can be so strong that some people basically give up their dreams because they are afraid of what others will say or think. Of course, action may lead to failure, but the upside of it is that you learn from that experience and take a different approach next time. Before a plane takes off, the pilot has a very specific destination in mind. He or she knows whether to fly north, east, west, or south in order to arrive at the planned destination. What most people do not know, however, is once the plane takes off, it's off course for a majority of the flight time. The pilot gets this feedback from the electronic equipment in the cockpit. In other words, the pilot uses the negative feedback to stay on course until he reaches the planned destination. Negative feedback is important. Successful people failed many times and were ridiculed many times before they got to where they were. When Marconi announced that he found a way of sending sound through the air without cables, they wanted to lock him into a psychiatric hospital. Thomas Edison, the great inventor, failed many times in his attempt to create the first light bulb, but he did not give up until he did it. A second major reason for procrastination is the fear of success. What? Yes, that's right. The fear of success, mostly on a subconscious level, leads men and women to procrastinate. A friend of mine once put it this way: when I look at the kind of responsibilities my boss and others in the company who are in leadership positions have, I would rather stay where I am. They earn a lot of money, yes, but they work a lot and have a lot of responsibilities. He went on to mention that he would of course also love to earn the kind of money they were earning and have the positions they had, but what comes with it was just too much. Those with these kinds of fears will most likely procrastinate in taking actions that would lead them to higher and more lucrative positions. Their brains connect success with an uncomfortable situation, leaving their comfort zone. Being successful means having no private life and working most of the day. That's how they perceive it. Fear of letting others down, especially family members, is the third major reason for procrastination. An interview with a number of young post-apartheid South African entrepreneurs and scholars revealed that many of them struggled with aiming for success because they were either the first ones in their families to get a college degree, have a good job, or be a successful businessman or woman. Why would that be a problem, you may ask? Because they feared there would be jealousy from their siblings and relatives, or would be considered to have joined another class that does not match that of their families or roots. They value harmony between themselves and their loved ones and fear success would negatively affect this harmony. Those who struggle with this fear tend to procrastinate. They yearn to be seen as still being one of us. They are not up there, but rather still attached to the roots. Breaking the inconsistency egg. I once read the biography of a very successful blogger, and one aspect of his story in particular caught my attention. He mentioned that for years he consistently blogged on his website on a weekly basis, even though there was little to no feedback. He did not give up on his goal, as many would have done, but rather kept on trying different approaches. One thing he maintained was consistency. After about 4 years, he had a breakthrough and is now a well-known blogger with a huge following. Taking action is important, but it is consistent action, even in hard times, that will make a difference. This applies to any area of life. If you told your spouse once that you love them, and then assumed that your spouse would remember it for a long time to come, and hence decide it was not necessary to articulate your love anymore, it will have a negative effect on the relationship, to put it mildly. If someone is known to have a good reputation, it is because his character has been consistent over a long period of time. Take two people, we will call them John and Peter. They are both unhappy with the direction their lives are taking in the areas of health and finances. John's plan is to exercise for 10 minutes every day, 5 days a week, and he also decides to save 10% of his earnings through automated wiring from his current account to a savings account every month. Peter, on the other hand, does not have a fixed plan for his workouts. He ends up working out twice a month for 30 minutes per workout session on average. As far as money is concerned, he decides he will save if some money is left over, which rarely happens, or if he is lucky enough to earn some extra money. If you compare the two after a few weeks and even months, you will barely notice a difference in their physical fitness and finances. But if you compare them after, say, 2 years, there will definitely be a huge difference in favor of John. They will be worlds apart in both physical fitness and financial strength. Inconsistency is definitely an egg to break in order to make an omelette. Breaking the other people's opinion egg. We have covered this a bit under the fear of failure, but it's worth looking into in depth. Whoever sets a goal, takes action, and focuses on achieving it will, on the way there, without exception, at some point face opposition or ruffle some feathers before getting there. Well-meaning people like mothers, brothers, sisters, relatives, or very good friends might have a completely different opinion on whether you should pursue your goal or not. Your business partner may at one point change their mind on the course being taken and try to convince you to change it, even though you strongly feel it's the right one and it is yielding results. It takes a strong character to firmly stick to the course, even at the risk of ruffling feathers. This does not mean one should completely ignore advice from others. It is important to listen to other people's opinion. However, after weighing up the pros and cons, it is important to make a decision without being afraid to act against the opinion of others, even if they are dear friends and family. It is important to accept that it's impossible to please everyone. François de Charette was indeed right to conclude in his proverb that you cannot make an omelette without breaking some eggs. Effort and sacrifice are imperative to achieve anything. Another English proverb puts it this way: there is nothing like something for nothing.